Hey everyone, welcome back to Movie Snobs. My name is Matt Reed.
And I'm Becka Tyler.
And we are going to both be reviewing a very special Into the Spiderverse.
We're going to be talking about essentially like the animation, how many characters are in there, like our little pros and cons about the movie. We're gonna have a nice chat. So
Yeah, and with following Movie Snobs fashion, we're going to try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. So in case, you don't want to know anything at all about the movie, about the animation style, about the colors, about nothing, this is your warning right now. The first thing I really want to talk about here is the animation, and I have seen it in articles and on TV. They can't stop talking about the animation.
Oh yeah.
What did you think about the styles they used in the movie?
So first off, I was blown away by the animation because going into this movie, I was very worried about there being because it does have the comic book type style of animation, which was amazing. That really, it hasn't been done before in this kind of way, but since it had that comic book style animation, I was afraid that it was going to look very two-dimensional. Mm-hmm. But after watching this, it's very clear that there's more than 2 dimensions in this movie. It was a very nice balance between 2D and 3D. The characters and the landscape definitely took on that nice 3D effect, but there was still that little element of the two-dimensional comic book style that made it actually look like you were watching a comic book. Like, take Harry Potter, like how you can watch pictures, like that's how I felt watching this movie.
As if you were reading a comic book, it was just up on the big screen.
Yes, correct.
Now that we've, went over the animation, went over the colors, something that ties in heavily with that is the characters themselves. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about a little bit more detail on some of the characters, like, when you see the original trailer for the movie and you think, okay, I've heard that they're going to include this character, I've heard that they're going to include this character, I wonder how they're going to do that, how it's going to look in this style of animation. Mm-hmm. But they didn't do that because they let each multiverse spider character be their own style of animation.
Yeah.
And I know that, you saw
Penny Parker, who was kind of like she's a Japanese character, so instead of just animating her in your traditional comic book style, they made it more an anime manga type style, which I thought was really cool. It really emphasized the character that she is and the fact that she's different from everybody else. Along with, they also have a character in there, Spider-Ham, who is Spider-Man but he's a pig. Funny enough, he actually is a comic book character. I didn't know that. When actually viewing this movie, I had to have Clayton, our comic book expert, tell me that. But he's actually a comic book character, but to kind of give him a little bit more of a personality, per se, despite the fact that he's a pig, so he obviously stands out. But they even gave him more of a Looney Tunes-esque type of animation, which I thought was pretty cool.
One of the villains that's in this movie, he's in the very first trailer I saw, is the Prowler.
Oh, I love the Prowler.
And the Prowler
oh my gosh.
was scary. When I was in that movie theater, I was watching it with my friend. He'd already seen it, but I hadn't, and I looked over and both of us were like, which is weird to say in a kid's movie, but every time that you saw the Prowler and the Prowler made eye contact with Miles or made eye contact with somebody else, you knew the Prowler is going to pursue that till one of them can't anymore. Whatever end that comes to. But just every time he locked eyes, there was a score behind it.
Oh, that's what I was just about to bring up, is just the music that they used for the Prowler actually kind of it chilled me a little bit. It got you. Really, there's no other way I could really describe it, because it really just got to you. There was that little it almost had kind of an animal-esque sound to it that was kind of creepy and scary, that really made you feel like this is a villain. This is someone that you should be afraid of right now.
Yeah, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I did hear a lion roar at some point in time when making eye contact.
Oh,
and
yeah,
just
sure.
every time, and you could see it in Miles. He was so scared every time he came across him, because he made eye contact and he was like, oh no, and then just the Prowler just went after him every single time.
A lot of the supporting characters in this movie go are really underrated, or at least they felt like underrated in previous movies that they were in. Like some of them were actually changed in this movie. Like one, like I'm not gonna give specific details about this, but Aunt May, who is Spider-Man's aunt, she is actually portrayed more as like instead of being like a very weak individual, she is portrayed as someone who helps Spider-Man a lot by making a lot of his gadgets and like actually helps him throughout the movie. So I don't want to give any more else away. I want a lot of this to be more of a surprise. But
I want to say that there were some really good moments from Miles's parents, more so his dad. There were emotional moments in that movie where you could tell that, like, you know, maybe things aren't so good between parents. I'm sure we can all relate. We've all had, you know, issues with family in the past. In present and future, that's just normal. That's how family is. But, you know, that they really portray that on screen very well, to a point where you're just like, there's emotional moments where I'm like, Miles' dad, come on.
It is very heart touching moment. There's a lot of heart touching moments throughout this movie that I was actually very surprised to see, not only in an animated movie, but like in a superhero movie at that. So I thought that was pretty nice, that emotional touch.
Last but not least, I want to talk about the comedy in this movie. Because, maybe not last but not least, but the comedy in this movie was so good. It was, I don't know how to, like,
there were,
that.
like, little things.
I don't know, there's not a better way to describe it, but the comedic timing. John Mulaney was the voice of Spider-Ham, and he's a comedian in his own right, and he did a lot of writing for SNL and so on and so forth. And he's so funny in this movie, and you can tell that they were just kind of like, all right, you're a pig, you're Spider-Man, run with it. It's like, all right, sounds good. I'm gonna be like a Porky Pig type character, but he's hilarious. They have Nick Cage does the voice of Spider-Noir, and he's also hilarious. I don't know. I didn't expect him to be, when I heard he was doing it, I didn't expect him to be so funny, but it was awesome. The other characters were great. There were just moments here and there, little things you didn't expect. You might not have been watching for, but it was hilarious.
There were also like one or two fourth wall breaks in the movie, which I appreciate a nice fourth wall break. Like those are always pretty funny.
Well, now that we've gone over the pros and what we like about the movie, and honestly we can go on and on and on about it, I do want to talk about, you know, a few little things that I didn't really like, and Becca has some stuff to add.
I have like one thing.
Yeah, what do you want to add? I have like one thing too.
Okay, so I've talked to a couple people already. I know I talked to you about it. I've talked to a couple other people. They kind of disagree with this, but I was wondering why there weren't more spider people per se in like each universe, because if they were to just portray maybe like one person per dimension as their own spider person, maybe I could see that being a thing. But it was clear within there's one point in the movie where there's a Peter Parker and Miles in the same dimension, so it's clear that there can be one, like more than one Spider-Man in that same universe, which means that they were bitten by the same, like either the same spider or like different radioactive like spiders in the same universe. So I'm wondering why there aren't more people per universe that are like that. Like it kind of left a hole for me. So you never know. So what were your comments?
The only thing that I had a problem with in this entire movie was that his roommate knows who he is. Just
that's fair.
He's in 2 scenes, and they're like, well, is he trustworthy? How are you gonna explain that? We don't even know his name. It's just, I just don't. I don't know how that's gonna play out, and that was the only thing that's like, I was like,
yeah, because he woke up the one time like,
why'd you do that?
Like, and even in one of the trailers, like he you see him wake up, and then there's like a cluster of spider people. There's like a cluster of spider people in his room, and he's just like, he freaks out for a second, but then he's just kind of chill about the whole thing, and he goes back to sleep. Mm-hmm. So I guess I see where you're coming from.
I feel like that's a question for another for an expert.
I think that is a question for an expert.
And now, final rating time.
What are you giving it, Matt?
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10? I was taking into account all the work put into this movie and like how like all of our pros and all of our and a couple of our cons. I was gonna give it a 9.5 out of 10 because I really love this movie, but there's like those little bits that we found a little unsettling. So 9.5 I feel like is a really good score nonetheless.
I came out of the theater thinking it was a 10. I saw it again in the theater thinking it was a 10. Went out one more time. Thought it was a 10. So spent a lot of money seeing this movie, and it really didn't change my opinion of it at all. So it just got better and better as we went on. So I can't sit well with a 9 or a 9.5. I'll give it a 10.
Yeah,
but agree to disagree. That's okay.
I respect that. It. It's definitely one of the best Spider-Man movies so far.
Oh yeah.
I will definitely give it that.
Yeah.
It was top 3 at least. That's
there
it.
You
for
have
this
it.
One.
That's our final. Gave our final rating. 10 out of 10. 9.5 out of 10. Pretty close.
I had a fun time talking to you, Matt. It was a really good bonding experience.
Thanks for coming out and
my pleasure.
Talking to me. And this has been another episode of Movie Snobs, the final one of the semester. Thank you for joining us, watching me review movies and give my take on certain things. And I hope you guys had fun. I know I did.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ZTV Goofing Off. You can like us on Facebook, also at ZTV Goofing Off, and you can also subscribe to us on YouTube, which is also surprisingly at ZTV Goofing Off. We're it's the same thing. It's the same thing on all social media, so it's not that hard to find us. So if you want more of these very good Matt movie reviews, you can go to any of those fine social media accounts and check us out.
All right.